Hey guys, and welcome back to another fun, budget-friendly DIY video. Today I have some quick and easy patriotic DIYs to share with you. We're gonna be using all sorts of items, some that are like upcycled, some that are Dollar Tree, some that are clearance items, but either way, it's super budget-friendly, quick and easy, so let's get started.
So for this first one, I'm using one of these houses. This was from the Dollar Tree a while ago, but they have had various ones throughout the different seasons. I've also picked them up on clearance at Hobby Lobby. They've got the Dollar Tree has the plain, just like raw wood ones. So whatever you can find. But I'm gonna start by just taking off the flowers here, and I'm just using my heat gun to, well, actually mine's a hairdryer, and I'm just kind of covering it to keep everything from blowing off the table. But I'm just using my hairdryer, or you can use a heat gun to soften up the glue, and it just makes it a little bit easier to get everything off. And then once that's all off, I'm just going to use a sanding block to smooth it down. Now, if you're going to be painting this, you might want to sand more over the words, but I kind of skipped over that because I'm going to be using paper. And then I picked up this paper from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just trying to figure out which portions I want to use. I wanted to make sure there was plenty of blue and red on this. And I'm just holding it over the shape of the house, increasing it and pressing it down to give me a line to cut out. But you can also just trace it, obviously, with like a pencil. And then I'm just going to take some Mod Podge. I am using satin just because I just have a lot of different ones Plaid had sent me. So I'm just using what I have. And I'm just going to apply a thin coat of Mod Podge and then place the paper over top. Plaid also carries this little roller tool, and they sent it to me, and it is really helpful when using Mod Podge to smooth everything out. This was a thicker paper, so I didn't really have any trouble with wrinkling or bubbling, but it was definitely nice to just press it down. And then I'm going to give a coat of Mod Podge over top. I am going to do the edges only because I had already gotten a little bit on the sides, and I didn't want there to be any like difference in like the finish. Okay, so now moving on to some embellishment. I have a plastic shower curtain ring from the Dollar Tree. I believe it comes in a 12 pack, and I'm going to make a little wreath out of it. And I'm using some raffia. You could use twine, yarn, a ribbon, whatever. And I just used a little bit of hot glue in the beginning to secure it, and then only a couple times throughout, and then once again at the end. So you don't have to use a ton of it like the whole way around. Just wrap it nice and tight. And then once it was all hot glued down at the end, I just trimmed it all off, gave it a little bit of a haircut, and I've got paint all over my hands at this point here. I was going back and forth between all of the different projects. And now I'm just going to hot glue that onto our house. If you need to trim off any excess paper, you can do that. I did not need to, but obviously there's, if there's any extra paper over the house, go ahead and trim that down. Now I'm just taking some greenery. This is, I think, boxwood from Walmart, and I just broke it off into little tiny pieces and hot glued that around the wreath. There's a lot of different ways you could do this. I was trying to think and just like use what I have. I didn't have any like little stars. That would have been cute, but I was also trying to keep it kind of rustic. Of course, with all of these DIYs, you can use more vibrant colors and just make it suit your style if you want. But I kind of went with a little bit more distressed rustic look. And then I'm also making a little finger bow with some jute twine and just using my lighter to burn off any little fuzzy hairs. And then we're just going to hot glue that onto the center of the wreath. And then I just wanted to take a little bit of white paint and lightly dry brush that over the wreath just to, I don't know, help continue on the little distressed rustic look. And I love how this came out. All of these items are, well, not all of them, but a lot of them are going to be good for like tier tray type things. So moving on, I have this little bead pack from the Dollar Tree, and they are pretty small, but you get a lot of beads. And I was trying to put them onto a wooden skewer so I could paint them, but the holes were not big enough. So what I did was just took some floral wire, and I figured I'd just share this with you to show you a little trick. I twisted it in, or doubled it over, and then twisted it. So doubling it over made it a little bit sturdier, but it was still thin enough to fit through the beads. And then I strung the beads, and I just taped each end of the floral wire onto some paint onto the lids. So I just wanted to find a way to suspend them to paint them. So I pulled the yellow beads because I figured it was a lighter color, it'd be easier to paint. And I'm going to start by painting them white with Waverly chalk paint. My Waverly chalk paint is getting towards the end, and it's pretty thick, so I am dampening my paintbrush by dipping it in some water. And then we're just going to paint over these beads. and I just let it dry in between coats, but I did do about 2 to 3 coats. If you're new here, welcome. I love sharing budget-friendly DIYs with you. I try to keep them quick, easy, and simple, and of course, budget-friendly. So if you're into that kind of thing, please consider subscribing before you leave. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so much. So now I'm dry brushing these white beads with some burnt umber acrylic paint. And then I also took out some red and blue beads from the same package and just did a tiny bit of brown paint on them as well, just to, have them all match. And then I'm taking some twine. I did put a little bit of masking tape at the end, and I did have to poke through some of these beads. They're not perfect beads, and so I use a little wooden skewer to widen up some of the holes when needed. And I'm just going to string these beads. We're going to just make a mini beaded garland, and they are much smaller than you would typically see in a beaded garland, but I thought this would be cute, probably on my tiered tray, and I figured why not just do a little mini version. And then the twine was pretty hairy, so I was just kind of slid the beads down a little bit and used my lighter to burn that off once again. And now I'm just wrapping the twine around my hand. I'm just using my 4 fingers, and we're going to make a little tassel. I didn't do a super huge one because this is a pretty small beaded garland, and there was a big chunk, as you see that way, caught on fire there. A big, I don't know, just a big chunk of twine there. Anyways, you're going to wind that around to however thick you want it, and then you just cut off a smaller piece and tie it just a little bit down from the top, whichever end you want to be the top. You want to leave a little bit of an opening there to attach your tassel. And I'm going to just tie that in a double knot, clip off the bottom part to open up those strings. And then I do once again go in with my lighter. This is a little bit more dangerous when you have such a big ball of twine. I kind of burnt myself because it catches fire more easily. It's better if it's just one single strand at a time, but nonetheless, we got it, we trimmed it down, and then I'm just going to attach that to one end of our beaded garland by just tying that in a knot. And I thought about doing a tassel on both ends, but instead I pulled out this metal tag, which I got from the Dollar Tree in a pack of 3 or 4. And then I have these window clings. These are also from the Dollar Tree. I use them later on in the video, so these clips are a little bit out of order. So I'll show it to you better later. But they had lots of different ones for 4th of July. And I am just attaching them to this little tag. A lot of times the window clings will stick, but I was afraid they wouldn't stick good enough. So I am going in with some Mod Podge and just laying them down and sealing that over top and then letting that dry. Once that's dry, we're just going to string that onto the other end of our garland by just tying another simple knot. And I just love how this came out. I think that's a really cute mini beaded garland, and I only had to paint the white beads because the pack came with red and blue, so I love how this one came out. Next, I'm just taking this glass jar. I think it was just from food that I upcycled and saved it. I do that a lot with jars, and I'm just taking some painter's tape and doing my best to make a semi-straight line. This is not going to be perfect. I'm going to tape off the middle section so that I can paint it. I'm not like a perfectionist at this, so, take your time. I did not seal the tape down super great. I had a little bit of bleed through on this first one, but I'm painting white in the center. I did give it a couple coats, letting it thoroughly dry in between. On glass, you want to do that, otherwise it's likely to just peel off. And as you can see, I got some paint somehow on the bottom, probably from my hand, and then I'm just wiping off a little bit of the bleed through. No big deal. Once that was thoroughly dry, we are going to tape off again so that I can paint the top and the bottom. And I'm going to use Crimson and Ocean. These colors are from a Waverly chalk paint. I do get mine at Walmart, but that is another plaid product. You can purchase that online. And I did red on the bottom, red on the top, blue on the bottom. Once again, doing a couple coats, but letting it fully dry in between. Once that was dry, I pulled off the tape, and it was pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. And now I'm just going to go in with a stencil brush that I dipped a little bit into that burnt umber acrylic paint, and just am going to go over and distress this. Once again, you can use more vibrant colors, you could use more neutral colors, you can distress it, you cannot distress it, whatever you want. And there's a lot of things you could just stick some florals in this and use it as a vase. But I picked up this star after Christmas at Dollar General for 10 cents. So I wanted to pull that out and use that here for the 4th of July. And I'm going to go in with some burnt umber paint. Now I really sped up this clip here. I went in and I did light coats because I didn't want paint getting stuck in all of those cutouts and have like, I don't know, goopy globs of paint. So I just kind of took my time and worked my way around. I did do both sides and I left the little bottom piece so I could hold on to it, but we'll take it off later. And then once that fully dried, I went in with some Mod Podge to seal it because paint does tend to come off of metal pretty easily. And once again, just trying to work quickly because Mod Podge will dry and get sticky, but also not wanting Mod Podge to get into all of the little crevices. So anyways, you could use this with any Christmas star, something you find at a thrift store or on clearance, or an old one you have at home, but I could not pass this up when I found it at Dollar General on clearance. And then we're going to take a wooden dowel rod and I'm just going to paint that with a burnt umber as well. And you could use, I use a smaller one, you could easily use a bigger one depending on the size of your container you're using. And then I dry brush with a little bit of white paint. And now I'm trying to pull this little piece off. It was not as easy as I thought it was going to be. It did not cut, but eventually I was able to bend it back and forth and it came out of the bottom. And now I'm using some super glue gel and I do also use some hot glue and we're attaching the wooden rod in there, and I couldn't stick it up too far because I didn't want it to be seen through those cutouts. So I just kind of took my time and put whatever glue I could in there and hold it down real good till it dried. And then I have these white rocks. They're from the Dollar Tree. They get kind of dusty, so that's why I have them like a Ziploc bag. I think you actually might see a little dust smoke come out. Maybe not. Maybe I edited before that happened. There's a little white plume of dust that came out. But anyways, I put some of that in, and you could also add some styrofoam pieces as well. But I just surrounded the stick with some rocks, and I love the little white rocks too because I think it goes well with the red, white, and blue. And that'll hold that stick in. And I thought this was just another cute little patriotic decor piece, and it's nice and rustic, which is kind of my style, in case you haven't figured it out. And now we're going to do some really quick, very simple DIYs with these window clings from the Dollar Tree. So I've got this circular little plaque. It's on a stand from the Dollar Tree, and we're simply just going to peel one of those window clings off and put it on there. This means you can change it out. You don't have to obviously leave it like this. These little ceramic pieces come in 3 different shapes, at least that I've seen from Dollar Tree. And there you have it. No Mod Podge, no glue, just sticking it on there. So I've got a couple of these here for you, and I thought this was perfect for people who maybe don't want to go all out with decorating, but these are things that you can just add on and take off at the end of the season. I have this little white truck. This is from Hobby Lobby. This was Easter. I picked it up on clearance for like $1.50. And once again, I'm just putting on a few more of these little window clings all around it. You could also just use like stickers, but whatever you've got. And then I'm going to just add in a little bit of greenery, and this will be perfect on a tiered tray. Once again, no glue, no Mod Podge, just peel off those window clings when you're done. And one final one, I have this white crock on my kitchen counter that I keep all of my utensils in. I picked it up from Walmart years ago, and I'm just using this giant window cling, putting this on here. Sorry, the camera angle is not super great, but I just love how this came out. Gave a little bit of patriotic in my kitchen, and that is it for today's video. If you liked it, once again, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.